Hello, it is Judi.Diamond along with Laura Pascal Brown with What a Shift Show. You found us for a reason, and maybe it's because you're questioning something. I know I am. Laura, I am so confused. I read this blog, I think it was on Quora or something, and the guy was like detailing what it is, like in 6 things, means you've had a spiritual awakening. And I went, but I've had that. And I certainly don't know anything near to any kind of Buddha. I don't feel like I'm anywhere near that. I always thought of a spiritual awakening as like enlightenment, and I know I'm not alone in feeling this. So
Hmm.
I'm confused.
Join the club. A lot of confusion around this. All right. Yeah, let's dive into this. I mean, you are certainly not alone. 2024, huge amounts of people going through this, going through some big internal shift. I personally haven't met any Buddhas out there yet. So what is it that's happening to us? What is this like evolution that's happening? And why is it so goddamn messy? So, I mean, I think there are models out there where people do suddenly go through these massive like shifts, like Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, other people you may have heard of, where they just suddenly are happy and their psyche is 100% changed. And then for 99% of us, that is not our experience. And I know that for me, I've had moments where I've been kind of lifted out of the gloop and I see everything and I go, oh my God. And all I feel is love. And then I'm kind of, I just like dive
right?
back in.
Yes,
And I'm like, oh, I'm back in the mud.
I guess here's a way to put, Ram Dass. A lot of people, if you don't know Ram Dass, you could look him up. His story is real simple. He was very genius guy, made a ton of money, and then all of a sudden he's in a bathtub, and he goes, "This isn't what I want. There's more." And with that, like within years, the guy's a meditator. He does all this. How come I'm not there yet?
See, Ram Dass is actually a brilliant example, and here's why. He's passed now, but there was he had a stroke in, I don't know, his 80s or something, and he falls down and he finds himself lying on the floor looking up at the ceiling, and in that moment he realized, I am not fully enlightened yet.
Wow.
Because if I was, I would just be welcoming death and opening my arms and everything would be fine. And so he was lucky enough to come back from that stroke. He had a lot of paralysis and he needed a lot of help after that. And it was the gift he was given to, I think, basically taking him to full enlightenment.
Wow.
And I think, I could be wrong, I think he reached it before he died. But that guy had been, like you said, meditating and running, and I mean, the guy wrote Be Here Now, for God's sake. He's one of the most famous spiritual teachers of all time. And yet he's lying on the floor after a stroke, looking up at the ceiling going, shit, I haven't done it yet. So what is it that happens? What are we looking for here? And how the hell does tarot work into this? I'm just going to bring it back briefly to tarot because I think it's a really simple way of looking at it. The major arcana, which starts with the Fool and ends with the World, and then if you use the deck I use, which is the Fountain Tarot, after the World there is the Fountain, which has the number infinity, and we'll go into that in a second. It is not, you don't jump from 1 to 21. It's kind of messy. You're not necessarily going from card to card in order, but you're kind of skating around. There's a lot of back and forth. And that journey is the journey of somebody who is trying to work their way back to their own soul, from a place of darkness to a place of light. And many of us along the way have moments where it's clear that something has shifted, and then maybe we feel like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or maybe sometimes we go through another dark night of the soul and we're really confused about that. So, for me, and I'd love to hear your version of this too. For me, the first moment or the first kind of part of what I would call my spiritual awakening essentially just felt like massive amounts of depression. It was a dark night of the soul. It didn't look like anything good was happening. But what was happening inside of me was I was becoming ready to really admit that the world that I saw around me and that I was trying to fit in perfectly with was not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a process of like collapse, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a sudden moment of insight, which for me came when I was looking at past journals, where I realized, wow, in every single awful situation I've ever been in as an adult, the common denominator was me.
Mm-hmm.
And that set the ball rolling. And then I got into my addiction recovery program, and, you know, there was a whole lot more to follow, but that set the ball rolling for me being willing to do something which is a spiritual axiom, which has been around for thousands of years, which is know thyself.
Mm. Yeah.
Not, don't spend, you know, not chase tail, not try and get a good job, not become famous, but what are we doing here? We are here to know thyself. And I think trying to work out what the hell that means is then a massive part. I mean, I've been through so many parts of that, which we can get into,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, and along the way, there's a lot of shedding. There's a lot of confusion. There are moments where we come up to the surface and we, you know, we feel amazing, but there's a lot of gray area. So, and I'd love to hear kind of, you know, what was it that started it for you, Judy?
Well, I always have felt there was something more ever since I was a little girl. And I don't know if that comes from my mother, who was pretty open about that stuff, but then it started. Gosh, I think wanting to know started when I was about 18. Believe it or not. So that's why I said I don't think I haven't had a spiritual awakening. I've been curious for years and chasing something for years. And what I'm discovering is I'll attach myself to something and I'll go, yeah, this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get where I need to be. And if I just do Buddhism or if I just do this, I mean, all these different things. And each one I learn something, I take away, and then I come back and go, okay, I'm not enlightened or awakened yet. I'm still fine trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And
Mm-hmm.
so even just recently, I had no idea um hermeticism, is that, am I saying it right?
I think so.
I
Hermeticism. Yeah.
didn't even know that existed until a week ago. I'm reading about it. I go, that's my belief. That's my where has this been my whole life? It's been around for thousands of years. I've never heard of it. So I feel like I'm always just chasing it, trying to find out more. And the more I find out that I learn, the less I know. And then I'll find some little spark, like you said, something of a meditation that goes, oh, boom. And for a few seconds, I feel that I'm one with all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
only it would last.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If
Right.
only it would last.
Yeah.
And I go on TikTok and I'll go down a TikTok rabbit hole and you could look at these people, the gurus, whatever, and all kinds of people saying this, saying that, and you could easily go, yeah, that's good. Oh, that's good too. Whatever works is great. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that I just think it's a journey. I can't imagine that it's just this, okay, I'm awakened now, you know? um,
Mm-hmm.
I think this tarot definitely, with you doing it this way, the way that you do it, has definitely been for me a fast track for growing and learning about myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Right.
And I think
That's
that's
great
it.
to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said, you know, sort of that twists and turns and, oh, I found it. You know, and then, damn it. No.
Yeah.
Um, that has 100% been my experience too. You know, I mean, what does it mean to be, quote, a spiritual person? Does it mean that you're really good at yoga? Does it mean that you have a meditation practice every day? Does it mean that you eat vegetarian? Does it mean that you never swear? Does it mean that you never have sex? Does it mean that you renounce everything that you used to own? You know, and
Right.
I think there are ways that many of us have dabbled in all of those things, um, only to find like, okay, I you know, this isn't it. And, I
This
followed a
isn't my
guru and
spiritual drug of choice yet.
right,
It is
exactly.
though.
I
It
mean,
really is. You
yeah,
can get addicted to these things. I would
you
say I'm
can
addicted
totally
to
get addicted.
I think I
Yeah,
am addicted to trying to find my spiritual awakening, you know?
right. And Krishnamurti, who doesn't beat around the bush, he said, it doesn't matter if your mind is obsessed with drinking or with God. If you are still in your mind obsessed with something, that's not it.
Mm-mm.
And so, after many years of meandering and really building up my own spiritual ego and kind of being a spiritual asshole for a while, I've landed on some very, very basic tenets. I'm going to caveat this by saying everything I'm about to say, I still could be completely wrong on. I think an important part, and, Judy and I, we were just talking about this, an important part of this journey is to be willing to be wrong at every moment.
And to be willing to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to be wrong on this. But I think one of the reasons why I've landed, again, coming back to the tarot, where I've landed on tarot being one of my favorite tools for this is because wands, energy, cups, emotions, swords, thoughts, and then coins, pentacles, the real world. That is all I need now. So what does that mean? Wands, am I following my own energy? And the answer a lot of the time is, well, at the beginning of my journey, I was like, what the hell is energy? Don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, awakening to the fact that there was something that was flowing through me that wasn't blood, but that was in me all the time. That was an awakening in itself.
True. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And, and then sort of learning to feel into it with different practices, Reiki, Qigong, whatever. I went through this is embarrassing to say. I went through a phase in 2017 where I was offering yoni Reiki, which was essentially, I mean, you can guess. I would sit on people and just show my
Hey, did it
woo-woo
pay well?
crazy phase. It did not pay well. There was
Oh,
a
well,
lot
shit.
of gray area. I don't recommend it to anyone. So, but coming to understand that there is energy in your body and that you can do things that either dim it or feed it, and that every single moment you can tune into it. That in itself, huge part of this journey.
A huge part. And also owning stuff and not blaming, but it's them. It's all them. It's all them.
Right.
No.
So let's get to that. How
What's
do
the
we
common denominator?
stop blaming? Because so much of this entire society is built around victim mentality and also around creating groups, right? This group against that group, whether it's a sports team or nations against each other. There is this war, conflict, competition mentality. And as we start to emerge out of that and look around and see what kind of society that has created for us and recognize maybe we don't want to feed into that anymore, how can we start to step out of victim mentality into something else? And that's where, to me, the cups and the swords come in, the emotions and the beliefs. So there is so many emotions that you have not felt that are stored in your body as stuck energy. So when we feel an emotion, it just flows through us. It's just in and out, like a baby does. I'm sad, I cry, it's gone. If we repress it, we suppress it, if we project it onto someone else, it essentially gets stuck in our body as what Michael Singer calls a samskara, which is just a fancy way of saying a block, a wound in you. You can call it trauma with a small t. You can call it, childhood shit. Whatever you call it, it is something that is getting in the way of you feeling good inside. Because
and the flow of the energy.
So when you tune in, one of the reasons why we're so obsessed with sex as a society is because often, for many of us, the only time we really feel good in our bodies is when we have sex. And then there
That
are people who are
orgasm.
unlucky enough that that's not even the case for them then. But like
Yeah.
for many of us, that's the only time. Why? Because we are bypassing a lot of those blocks and getting into the energy in our body, which feels good. If we want that feeling long term, don't we don't need tantric sex. That's just, that's just another path we can go down. And apologies to anyone who's into tantric sex. I go for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just
Mhm.
saying there is something so much better than that, which is, when we become willing to really feel the feelings that we have been blocking for a lifetime, which is not something you do over a weekend or even over a 10-week period. It is a commitment that we make to the long term to feel what has been repressed since childhood. As we do that, we start to unblock that energy flow and all of that ickiness inside that you just don't want to feel, that makes you crawl out of your own skin. That starts to subside.
Mhm. Makes total sense. And it's again, it's a journey. It's not something that's overnight. It's not a weekend seminar and then all of a sudden I'm going to level up. I mean, it doesn't work that way. And it's God, it's I think, here's the thing. We're the cause and we're the event after the cause. We are both. Um and so, and I always bring the skimming the stone in the water because we are responsible for where the waves are and how they come to us. So, um, I think that it's a journey every single moment we're in this body, in this vessel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, again, going back to spiritual awakening, I really don't think that we can get it in this vessel. Um,
You think?
that's my
Really?
own
Why?
I just think that, um, I don't know. I just have this feeling that it's something that happens later. Um, and I could be completely wrong. It's just something that I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that we may never know the answers, all the answers. We were
Right.
All we can
Right.
do is know ourselves the best to our ability, not our ego, not our personality, not all that other shit, but really our soul self. And I think that's freaking confusing enough. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
just getting to that, forget spiritual awakening. I've even given up on spiritual awakening because at this point, I just want to get to who the real me is, who the real without all that other shit.
Right.
So if I could
So
get
let's,
there, I'd
in
be
the
happy.
getting to the real me, know thyself, which leads
Yes.
us to the swords. Back in the so-called enlightenment, the period in the I don't know, I'm going to show my ignorance now, 1700s, I forget, 1800s.
Before the
God, I
Renaissance
did a
period.
philosophy degree and I can't even remember. Doesn't matter though, not
Hmm.
important. Anyway, back when Descartes said, I think, therefore I
I
am,
am. Hmm.
cue several more hundred years of human misery, we got very confused about what it means to know thyself. And as humans, we got very wrapped up in believing that we were our thoughts. And so when we get very attached to our own opinion about something, whether it's a political opinion or just having an argument with our spouse, like that belief that if you are opposing my opinion, you are essentially opposing something that is important, an important part
You
of
take it
me,
personally.
or yes, or even like who I am. That is again another part, massive part of what is being unraveled in this so-called spiritual awakening is essentially, so Eckhart Tolle defines spiritual awakening or spiritual evolution as an increasing ability to put distance between yourself and your thoughts. So, if you've ever been in that place where if you've ever been in that place where you wake up at 3 a.m. and there's a thought that is terrorizing you,
Hmm.
which I'm pretty sure we've all been there. The reason it's terrorizing you is because you believe it. So whether that thought is like, I'm going to die, or my boss is going to fire me, or my kid isn't going to get the right grades, or somebody's cheating on me, whatever that thought is, or I'm getting fat, you know, if you could watch that thought and go, oh, that's an interesting thought, in the same way that you could watch a TV program, you don't get upset when the actors on a TV program do crazy stuff
Right.
because it's a TV program.
Mm-hmm.
But you get upset at the stuff in your own head because you take it personally and you think it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Eckhart Tolle is really clear about, he's very simple. You think that stuff is real, the more space you can put in between you and that thought, the more you have evolved. And Byron Katie adds to that by saying, and here's a bunch of stuff you can do to help do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you do that stuff to let go of the thoughts, essentially what she says is not that you really are able to let go of a thought, because if you could drop a belief, you would have already done it. The
Sure.
belief drops you. Once you put space between you and it and you just watch it, after a time, the belief drops you. And you can imagine almost, the way that I used to teach psychology, and the way that, traditional psychology imagines thoughts
Mm-hmm.
is each of us humans is kind of walking around as a separate entity, and we have these thoughts in our heads, right? And they're in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to offer a different perspective to you, which is, think of yourself actually as a radio that is picking up on certain wavelengths. Signals. And if you are tuned into the I'm fat channel, then that's what you get. And if you can, if you happen to grow up in a society that's racist, then that channel's quite loud. Mm-hmm. And that might be going through your head. So a lot of it is about the environment you're in. A lot of it is just about where we're at as humans right now, which is there is a huge amount of negative beliefs going around. And what we're doing as we do the work of spiritual awakening is we're just turning down the volume.
I like that.
Just
so
turning down the volume.
It's
yeah, because I think a lot of us get confused. I know I did. And I think we've had this conversation before, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us get confused that our job is to sit down and meditate and immediately empty our minds.
Right. Yeah.
And then you stand up and you go, well, that was a disaster. And so you never meditate again. Mm-hmm. And, as somebody who's been meditating pretty regularly for now 15 years, I can tell you my thoughts are all still there. And they're still pretty crazy and repetitive. And what I have learned to do over the years is simply turn the volume down on them and not take them personally and just be like, thanks for sharing.
What's interesting is the way you put it when you said it lets you go. You have to look at it as every thought is energy. Every thought is energy. You can't make a building without thinking about it first. So, when you're just observing it as opposed to really being in it, you're giving it more energy. And the minute that you kind of just go, okay, that's a thought, the energy is dissipated a little bit. It's still there. Like you said, it's not, the energy's not going any, but at least it's, I like to visualize it dissipating out into the universe somewhere and kind of turning around into something else. Little white light, little, I know when I do meditation, and it's the breathing meditation, and there's all kinds. And there's one that I like, and it's the one where you count and then you hold and then you breathe out, whatever. It's that whenever I let it go on the out breath, I visualize all this black and gray stuff leaving. And I visualize whatever thoughts, it's the black, it's going out there and it's turning into beautiful white light out away from me. And that seems to be helpful. And I've done that lately with people that I felt I would just kind of go, okay, whatever they're saying to me, I'm just going to turn around. Da, da, da. I've done that with my own thoughts, not in meditation. And it's been helpful. But here's the thing. No matter what, I will always, no matter, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And maybe, Eckhart Tolle talks about this, but I'm still always going to have the one question Why? What is the point? Why do I have to go through all this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is no answer to that. There is no answer because nobody knows.
I mean, you interested in his answer to that?
Yeah, what would he say?
I
What's
think,
the
could be
point?
wrong. I think that he would say, you know, the suffering is because we humans have come here to Earth for one reason, reason only, which is to evolve, and so all of what looks like bad stuff, all of the pain and the suffering is there as a gift to help you grow and to help us collectively move towards a completely different way of being. And, you know, I mean, I think it's interesting that you say you don't think it's available in this lifetime, because I want to know, therefore, how do you explain people like Jesus and the Buddha and Eckhart Tolle if
How
you
do we
don't
know
think,
that they're really truly enlightened though? Because
oh, you
so
think they're
you
full of
just
shit?
no, I don't think I'm not saying they're full of shit, but what I'm saying is what Eckhart Tolle, what you just said he would say, I already believe that.
Uh-huh.
But I still go to, but what's the point? Why? What are we
Right.
evolving to? Nobody can answer that, and that
No,
drives me
you're right.
crazy.
There is no point.
No,
And I
and
mean, the
so
famous physicist Stephen Hawking said, it doesn't matter in a way. Essentially, he said it doesn't matter that the brain is obsessed with why.
I
Why,
know.
why,
Tell
why?
me why.
And
I want to know
have you
why.
ever had a moment, Judy, where, you know, you're driving somewhere, you turn the corner and the sunset just blows your mind
Sure.
and you're full of like awe and wonder and like,
Mhm.
oh my God. Are you in that moment asking why? Or are you just in a sense of joy and bliss?
Ooh, good one. You're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
find that when I see kids playing and hear the laughter, and I'm in that moment. So yes, that
Right.
that is a better explanation than Eckhart Tolle's.
Okay. I mean, you know, there's a moment where in everybody's evolution, and I have touched into it, but I'm only touching into it. I don't live in this place yet, where we move from our head to our heart. And the question of why is not, we're just not interested in it as a question anymore. At that point, we just get to live in a place of innocence and peace and joy and serenity. And I think for some reason I have a deep knowing this lifetime that that is available.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel deeply committed to pursuing it. And just to, you know, kind of put in a nutshell all of the things I just said is, in order to pursue that, I am committed to feeling my feelings when they come up without trying to change them, without trying to fix them, to investigating my beliefs so that they can let go of me, and so there's space in between me and it, and to feeling into my energy, which becomes more and more possible as I feel my feelings and let go of my beliefs. And the final piece of that, the coins, the pentacles, is as we do that, we are able to stop continuously asking why, continuously chasing knowledge, continuously chasing achievement, continuously you know, even if the achievement that we were chasing was like, I want to become a really good meditator. I want to, you know, I want to become enlightened. You know, what happens gradually over time as we sink from our crazy minds into our hearts is we just stop chasing.
Mm.
And we also stop pushing away. You know, at the beginning, you know, we're holding on to these thoughts that say I'm fat or whatever it is, and then as we become, quote, spiritual, now we're trying to push those thoughts away.
Right.
I don't want to have that thought. I don't want to have that thought. Let me
Spiritual
focus
is
on
not
my mantra.
right.
Let me
Yes, so
become
true.
spiritual. Let me
Right.
focus on the
I'm
white
going to be
light.
spiritual. Yes. Yes.
And,
Yep.
you know, that is part of the same pattern of let me have it, let me push it away. And gradually over time, as we do the work, this stuff lets go of us. And we
I
stop
really
asking
like that.
why, and we stop chasing, and we stop pushing away. And at some point, we just sink in and we don't come back out again. And I forget which guru it was. I think it might have been Parmananda Yogananda said, find the river of love jump in and drown.
Mm.
And what he is pointing to is we're on a journey to know thyself, but what actually happens when we get to the end of it is we recognize that we are just the breath of the universe. We are the voice and breath of the universe. We are not Laura, British person aged 44. We are just, as Rumi said, I am the air that moves through the flute or something.
We're just the microcosm of the macrocosm.
Right, exactly. And so when we come to that place of knowing thyself, there's actually nothing to know. We're the hole in the donut. And so does your brain understand that? Hell no.
Yeah.
But is
somewhere
there something
my heart does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we're coming to know as we know ourselves. And we already know. And just
That's
to
true.
bring it
The
back
knowledge
to that,
is, you're right. The knowledge is, so I guess we're already spiritually awakened. We just have to remember.
yes and no.
I mean, look, when you say people that, I will say, if there was anybody that I can think of that was spiritually awakened, and don't laugh at me, Mahatma Gandhi. There's a guy that was facing a firing squad, and he just meditated and just was filled with love, and they couldn't shoot him. That's energy. That's enlightened. I mean, he wasn't doing anything. It's like, okay, I'm ready to die. Shoot me. He was just meditating. And they couldn't pull the triggers. There's something there,
Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ram Dass, in his discussion of lying on the floor looking at the ceiling, he actually talks about Gandhi. And he says that when Gandhi was finally shot by some random person in a crowd, he went down saying his mantra. He went down being like, I'm going to God, guys.
Wow. I get chills.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, am I
And
there yet? Definitely not.
And it was Jesus. I didn't know Jesus. And I don't,
Right.
so I don't know. I don't know what's
what's
real
lovely
and what's
about
not.
Jesus is even on the cross, he had a moment of doubt. Why hast thou forsaken me?
Ah, see?
So I mean, was
do you blame him?
Right.
Right? I'd be like, what the heck? I did everything you asked me to do. For heaven's sakes, what more do you want from me?
Dad, I did it the right way.
Right, exactly. Gosh, poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings us to the coins, which is, if you think it's meant to be a different way, and Byron Katie talks about this a lot. If you think your bank account is meant to be bigger than it is now, if you think that you're meant to be a different weight than you are now, if you think that insert whatever you think should be different, whatever is happening right now is exactly the way it was meant to be, because it's exactly the thing that you need to bring up the feelings that you need to feel. If you're pissed about it, don't get wrapped up in the situation, whatever it is you think needs to be different. Just focus on the feeling that you have and let it transmute in you. And that is the point.
Here's what I'm going to say. I want to do a part 2 of this. We're going to end this episode now, and then I want to do a part 2, episode 4. We're going to pull 3 cards.
Yeah, let's do that. We could do a meditation. We could pull some cards, because I know that you want to know, if you're out there, I know you want to know where you are on this journey and what the advice is for you. So let's do that.
Yep. You tuned in for a reason. So part 2, episode 4 is next.
We'll see you in part 2.